Well. Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to the Joy Reid Show. Big up to everyone in the chats. We already see the early adopters in the YouTube chat. North Carolina is in the house. We have a hello, everyone. We have a happy Monday. We've got everybody loading up inside. We have Natty C. Let's see, Nubian Queen, 6391. We've got a bunch of our friends that have already loaded up inside of the YouTube chat. Big up to everybody also that is already on site inside the Substack chat as well. Thank you all for being here as well. I am looking at my Twitchies. So adorable, so cute, so fun. Thank you all for being here as well. We are growing our little Twitch army. I want to remind everyone, and also let me not leave out the folks who are on Facebook. Let me not leave out the folks that are on LinkedIn. Whom else am I forgetting, Jason?
Everybody listening on their listening podcasts.
If you're listening on
Apple, Spotify, all this
Apple,
stuff.
Spotify, if you're listening on a podcast. And hello to the Lemon Nation. We see the Lemonheads already jumped in. Hope you guys had a fabulous Easter. Hope you guys had a great holiday weekend, or what we call Resurrection Sunday. It's weird calling it Easter because that's the pagan holiday. And the Christians who are like, Happy Easter, I always it's always a little weird for me that Christians call it Easter when Easter is actually the pagan holiday that the Catholic Church adopted when they went ahead and conquered pagan lands. We're like, what do you celebrate now? You celebrate that and there's like a bunny and a rabbit and stuff. Oh, you can keep doing that. Just go ahead and say you're Catholic. Go ahead and do it. It's all good. You can go ahead and incorporate that. We'll just pretend like it's part of it. And then they I don't know what that has to do with Jesus, but whatever. They like, there's a bunny. Is a bunny that's the size of a human that drops eggs somehow. And also there's Jesus, but we working it out. We just make it work no matter what. We just figure it out. So happy post-Easter to everybody. Somehow it all works out. I don't know. We are on the climb to 500,000 followers on YouTube. We're trying to get there by our first birthday, which is June 9th. That is when we turn 1. Here at the Joy Reid Show. On the YouTube side, we're at 437,000 and counting. We've been growing really fast, but we want to try to get there. So what we're asking folks to do, if you are a YouTube viewer of the Joy Reid Show, we would love it if you would send this link to 5 friends. Arrive with 5. Go ahead and send this YouTube link to 5 friends. Also hit like and subscribe. Also comment the little thumbs up thing. If you do the little thumbs up, the little like, and you leave a comment, and you hit share, and all you do is hit share and then send it to 5 people. When you do that, the algorithm loves it. It actually helps us. So the way that the weird algorithms work in this social media, independent media space is the algorithms pay attention to how much engagement you have. It's not just the raw number of followers, it's how much engagement. So on the YouTube side, we'd love to get to 500,000. We're on our climb to 1 million, but you got to get halfway before you can get all the way there. So we're hoping you can send this link to 5 friends. I still run into people who go, oh my God, we miss you so much on... And they still call it MSNBC, just to show you brands. You can't change brands that easy. People say, oh my God, we miss you so much on MSNBC. That's still what the people call it, right? No one is calling it Ms. Now. I call it Ms. Now. The way it looked like Ms. Now to me. That's why I call it. But they don't call it that. They say, I miss you on MSNBC. And then a lot of times I still have to tell people, no, we still have a podcast. And people don't generally know. Like you'd think everyone would know and this would be sort of universally known, but it's not. That's why we still have to let folks know. So please tell a friend. If you are on the Substack Nation, if you're part of our Substack fam, please note that we're going to be back on our Thursday grind, Thursdays at noon. If you are a premium subscriber, we're going to have a mystery guest and we're going to talk about, go in depth on these coming elections. We're going to be back at that on Thursday. Thank you all for giving us a break. Last week, we had a lot going on, but we're going to do that again this week. But if you're on the Substack side, please also send that link to 5 friends and let them know that we are at 210,000 and counting on Substack. We would love to we always want to go higher. We're ambitious people over here at the Joy Reid Show. And if you're on Twitch, that little Twitch army I'm very proud of. We are growing our little Twitch army. We are getting close to 300 subscribers on Twitch. Our Twitch army is growing. Once we take over Twitch, it's over then.
You got to get Miles involved with that.
I got to get Miles to work on it. We got to take over Twitch.
To deal with them Twitchy people.
Then I'll really be a streamer.
Oh my God.
And
you're a journalist. You're not a streamer.
Our 26-year-old will hate it. I'll be a streamer. So yeah, help us take over Twitch. Let's take over Twitch. What do you guys think? Should we take over Twitch as well? And have the Joy Reid Show take over? I think we should do that. I think we should do a Twitch-only stream. Let us know in the Twitch stream if you'd like to see a Twitch-only stream at some point. We'd be happy to do it. Just to let, get to know our Twitchies and talk to them a little bit. And of course, we love to do our inside only chats on YouTube and Substack. So we just love all our people. Wherever you're listening, we love you and we appreciate you. Okay. So we had a great Easter weekend over on this side. The Pope, who I really like Pope Leo, the Black Pope from New Orleans. I just love to remind folks that, according to the rules of the United States, he's a brother from New Orleans. And he went in. Here was a little bit of his homily.
In the light of Easter, let us allow ourselves to be amazed by Christ. Let us allow our hearts to be transformed by his immense love for us. Let those who have weapons lay them down. Let those who have the power to unleash wars choose peace. Not a peace imposed by force, but through dialogue. Not with the desire to dominate others, but to encounter them.
And this is the same Pope who previously said just last week in response, apparently, to the Trump regime trying to invoke God and Jesus in their attacks on Iran. He said, no, God doesn't hear the prayers of warmongers. If you are shedding blood and starting wars, God doesn't hear you. He said that. I love him. He says a lot of good stuff. It's really interesting. So Trump had a slightly different Easter message, just slightly different. And I quote, with apologies to all the saints, so we're trying to avoid a trick daddy moment. So just know that I warned you, although he kind of warned you too, those of you who were at the trick daddy event, because his name is Trick Daddy. that was your warning that he was going to probably be a little raunchy. The branding is in the name, but we're going to go ahead and warn you in advance so that we don't have a Trick Daddy moment, even though, again, his name is Trick Daddy. But anyway, not to have a Trick Daddy moment, let me go ahead and put it up on screen and I'll read it to you. But again, apologize to all the saints, because this is what Donald Trump had. This was his Easter message. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up into one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, is what he said. You crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. And then he ends it. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump.
All little kids should go home and repeat that same phrase to their parents.
Let's just say it in school.
And say, why can't I say it? The president says it.
The president, he said, open the fucking straight. I mean, I feel bad when I cuss because it's, you shouldn't be cussing, but every so often I do use the F-bomb, unfortunately, too much. But the idea that this is how the president speaks, and this is considered normal. So little kids right now who are growing up in Trump's America think this is a normal utterance from the president of the United States. He demanded, and first of all, open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Really? What you gonna do, Donald Trump? How you gonna put him in hell? The post was so nuts that Marjorie Taylor Greene herself posted a lengthy Twitter diatribe saying, oh my God, he's insane. Somebody go get Grandpa. Grandpa is crazy. That's my summary. I'm not going to read her long tweet, but she said on Easter morning, this is what President Trump posted. Everyone in his administration that claims to be a Christian needs to fall on their knees and beg forgiveness from God and stop worshiping the president and intervene in Trump's madness. I know all of you. I know all of you and him, and he has gone insane, and all of you are complicit. I'm not defending Iran, but let's be honest about all this. The strait is closed because the U.S. and Israel started an unprovoked war against Iran based on the same nuclear lies they've been telling for decades. That any moment Iran would develop a nuclear weapon. You know who has nuclear weapons? Israel. Now, I hate agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It makes my heart hurt. It makes my soul hurt. It's physically painful to agree with Marjorie. But when Marjorie Taylor Greene is the voice of reason, so this post, which also was read, Jake Tapper read it live on CNN. I don't know if he gave the Trick Daddy warning like I did. But somebody said, I hate her, but she's agreeing with me. Exactly. She suddenly is the voice of reason. Lady Contra said, I hate agreeing with her. But when Marjorie Taylor Greene has figured it out, something's wrong. People are starting to have the 25th Amendment conversation about Trump because of this. By the way, there was more at the Easter thing where I don't know why a person would take their child to Donald Trump White House Easter egg roll, but he was sitting around with the kids, talking to the kids about the auto pen, and the kids were looking at him like, I just wanted an egg full of candy. I don't know what's wrong with you, oh man. So that crazy tweet that you see on screen right now, that came one day after this spelling challenged post, which I helpfully corrected the English on. There it is. I had to helpfully correct it because Donald Trump can't spell. Donald Trump can't spell. Remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait? Time is running out, 48 hours before hell will rain, R-E-I-G-N, down on them. Glory to God, President Donald J. Trump. First of all, Donald, R-E-I-G-N means to rule. What you meant was R-A-I-N. Rain, as in rain down. Donald Trump supposedly went to an Ivy League college and claims to be smarter than every nuclear scientist in general, but he can't spell rain. Maybe he just had king things on his mind. But before you think that he might sound more coherent just explaining his Iran policy with like verbal words, again, apologies. I know y'all don't like listening to him, but I need y'all to listen to him try to explain all of this madness when he spoke with press at the Easter egg roll. Jason, I may pause it at certain points, but let's go ahead and start playing it.
Ending the war. What's stopping you from ending the war?
Well, it could end very quickly, the war, if they do what they have to do. They have to do certain things. They know that. They've been negotiating, I think, in good faith. We've had total regime change. You know, the people there now are much more reasonable.
Can we stop right there?
Are much more
He said we've had total regime change. The people there now are much more reasonable. Donald, which people? The U.S. killed Ayatollah Khamenei, who was then replaced by Ayatollah Khamenei Jr. So we've had total regime change, he said. And then people now are much more reasonable. Are they now? Because it's the same people. It's the same people, but they're much more reasonable. There also were unsourced reports over the weekend that Ayatollah Khamenei Jr. also might have been killed or at least severely injured. So you said we're negotiating with those people and they seem reasonable. Well, then, Donald, why are you still bombing them? You're bombing the leadership, and so is Israel. Who are you negotiating with? Okay, play a little bit more, please.
Had total regime change. You know, the people there now are much more reasonable than the lunatics that you had in phase 1 and phase 2. They were lunatics. The people that we're negotiating with now on behalf of Iran are much more reasonable. You can call it what you want, but I call it regime change, and I think most people are giving us credit for that.
No one's giving you credit for that. No one's giving you credit for anything. What are you talking about? All of Europe is shunning you. NATO is saying we won't help you reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They're telling you to F off. And the people you're negotiating with are literally the same people. And you're not negotiating with them. You're bombing them. And Israel is bombing them and bombing all their civilian infrastructure. What are you talking about? Iran keeps saying, no, we're not talking to you. Stop bombing us and then we can talk. Okay, let's keep playing.
The first regime was taken out. The second regime was taken out. Now the third group of people that we're dealing with is not as radicalized, and we think they're actually much smarter.
Why did you use such vulgar language in that Truth Social post?
Only to make my point.
Okay, stop there. He says, so he says that the new people, the third people are much smarter and they're far more radical. Ayatollah Khamenei and this current group of the same exact regime are even more far right. So they're not less, they're more radical. And number two, you said you use the vulgar tweet only to make your point. What point? What point were you trying to make, Donald? Open the effing straight or hell will rain down. Oh, I think they got your point, buddy. I don't think your point is negotiation. Let's keep going a little more.
I think you've heard it before.
Mr. President, have you spoken to the families of the airmen that were saved? Have you spoken to the families of the airmen that were saved?
I'm going to be doing it right now.
Mr. President, what do you say to Americans who are not a fan of the war?
They're foolish because the war is about one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Had we not broken the Barack Hussein Obama agreement, you know what I'm talking about, the Iran nuclear deal. This is years ago, my first term. You would have had a total Israel would have been gone, extinguished. Israel would have been wiped off the face of the earth, and the entire Middle East would have been, at a minimum, in big trouble.
Okay, stop that. We can stop. That's enough. That's enough. I got you. I got you. We just needed you to say it. I was going to go ahead and play it until he just said what it is. Did you hear what he said? Listen to what he said. Because Donald Trump is not smart enough to lie. He's not clever enough to come up with something clever. He just says what it is. He said, who opposed the deal that was made between the United States, Iran, and Europe? That would have been the Obama deal, right? That deal, they call it the JCPOA, the most successful negotiation with Iran that we've had in a generation, which got them to say they will not enrich their nuclear material beyond a certain point, and they will certainly not enrich it to the point where it can be made into a nuclear weapon. They essentially agreed to de-weaponize, to only use nuclear power for energy, nuclear for energy. That's it. Obama got them to agree to that. You know who opposed that? Bibi Netanyahu, Israel. As a matter of fact, Bibi Netanyahu flew to the United States and in an unprecedented move, spoke in our Congress to try to stop that deal from happening. He came and lobbied against it with our members of Congress, who, despite the fact that the president of the United States was negotiating at the presidential level, they listened to Bibi Netanyahu lobby against our bill inside our Congress. That was crazy. And he opposed it all the way through, was mad about it. Trump came in and obeyed Bibi Netanyahu and ended the deal, scuppered it, and then was going to negotiate his own deal that he said was going to be better. He did negotiate a deal that they said, okay, we'll do that. We'll do Obama plus. We'll give what Obama asked for. We'll give you that plus even more. We'll make it even more explicit that we're not going to get. And then like 2 days later, we started bombing them. Who benefits? Who wanted us to bomb them? Bibi Netanyahu. And Trump just said, who's been saying for 30 years that any minute Iran's going to have nukes? Bibi Netanyahu. So he just admitted that we just went to war because because Israel needed us to go to war. Israel wanted it because Israel was going to continue lying and saying that any minute Iran was going to have what they definitely have. Marjorie Taylor Greene ain't wrong. They got nukes. So he explained it. Thank you, Trump. Thank you for being honest. We did this war because Israel wanted us to do it, because they were going to keep on lying to American presidents forever until we put our boots on the ground to go to war against Iran for them, and put our boots on the ground and let our military members take the risk of dying so that Israel can be the only nuclear power in the Middle East. Got it. Let's hear a more coherent voice. Senator Chris Murphy also explaining why we're in this war.
The strait was open before the war began. We are now seeking to solve a problem that we created. This is insanity. $2 billion is a lot of money. That's the minimum amount of money that is being spent every single day on this war. There are over a dozen families who are burying their loved ones in the United States, and there may be dozens more if this war continues. Prices are skyrocketing, not just in America, but all across the world. Notices just went out from DuPont to their customers that the price of plastic is doubling. The price at the pump in many states is at $4, $5, and going higher. Fertilizer soon to be unaffordable for American farmers. The consequences of this war are stunning in their scope. Higher prices for American businesses and American families, a potential global recession, the wasting of billions of dollars of hard-earned taxpayer dollars, and new conflicts in the region that didn't exist before the war began. We have created a catastrophe in the Middle East. We are lighting taxpayer dollars on fire. We are causing prices to go up for everyone. And what is our new war aim? Reopening the strait that was open before we started the war. This is basic incompetence. I mean, this is what you get when you put talk show hosts and real estate developers in charge of American national security.
Exactly. Exactly. And not just that, people who want to make money. And by joining the military industrial complex, people who can profit from putting us in a war that we don't need to be in. This is what happens when you put greedy entrepreneurs and stupid talk show hosts who don't know any better than to stop it, Pete Hegseth, ambitious, self-aggrandizing fools like Marco Rubio, and a grifter in chief on top of the whole cabal, whose family, we're going to talk about this later in the show when Eric Swallwell joins us, are directly profiting from him going back on his core promise not to start any dumb wars. He started a dumb war. His family's making a whole shit ton of money if we're going to do another little cuss moment. Okay. So the other news that we got over the weekend is that the airman who was one of the two members of this $90 million F-15 fighter jet that was shot down or shot out of the sky, apparently by the non-existent Iranian military, which has nothing, but apparently managed to get that plane down. Although for some reason we do not know this or the other airmen's names. We don't know anything about them. We're getting nothing about them, but we're told they have been rescued, and we just have to go with that because that is what we're getting from mainstream media, that they've been rescued. We hope they are fine because they shouldn't have been over there in the first place. And they're actually lucky to have been rescued, this second airman, because you guys will remember what Donald Trump, had they been captured, just want to remind you what Trump thinks about people who've been captured who are members of our United States military.
Should run against John McCain, who has been, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him. I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. Hero. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
He likes people who weren't captured. So if that poor airman had been captured, Trump wouldn't give a crap about him because he does not have respect for the United States military, never has, thinks they're suckers and losers for joining in the first place, doesn't even understand why anybody would join anyway. He's not a patriot. He doesn't have any use for the military. But anyway, he's glad that he doesn't have another 1979 hostage moment. I'm sure about that. So Trump at his press conference that he did today, where he took credit for that capture, he also said that he is looking very hard to find the leaker who revealed the fact that we had one of our servicemen missing. He says that the Iranians didn't even know that there was anyone missing until this so-called leaker gave the information to a media outlet. Several U.S. outlets actually held back reporting about the second airman at all and about the rescue mission while it was still ongoing, according to the BBC, in order to not get in the way of the rescue happening. Trump told reporters, quote, "We have to find that leaker because that is a sick person. Probably didn't realize the extent of how bad it was. They put the mission at great risk." He also threatened to arrest the journalist who broke the story about the attempt to rescue the airman. He threatened to put them in prison and make them give up their sources, saying, "We're going to go to the media company that released it. We're going to say national security. We're going to say give it up or go to jail." Really? Okay, welcome to authoritarian America. The journalists who released the story, that's their job. And he's saying that he's going to lock them in prison until they give up their sources. The ability to have anonymous sources is a core part of journalism, but he's saying we're going to make that illegal, like it is in authoritarian countries, like it would be in North Korea or Russia. Got it. Trump, again, too dumb to lie. And probably also too slightly senile to lie. So he just says the thing. But Trump himself, despite that warning to the media, was actually giving play-by-plays on the airman situation himself on his Truth Social app. NBC News reporting that Trump said in a post on Truth Social that the airman was seriously wounded, adding that he is a highly respected colonel, making it a little easier to try to figure out who he is. A senior Trump administration official told NBC News that a second crew member's rescue was made possible with the help of CIA subterfuge. Donald Trump saying that on Truth Social. And I won't even read you the statements that the CIA and the Pentagon released to NBC and probably other news outlets, because they literally sound like North Korean propaganda. The glorious and grand rescue. I mean, the hyperbole and the way there were, I won't even read it to you because it would insult your intelligence. And I've already made you listen to Trump sounds. I won't do that to you. In fact, Trump and Hegseth's operations have been releasing propagandistic hot takes all weekend about the downed aircraft and the missing crew. According to Fortune, a regional intelligence official briefed on the mission said the U.S. military was forced to bring in additional aircraft to complete the rescue due to a technical malfunction. The official said the U.S. had to blow up 2 transport planes that it was forced to leave behind because of the mishap, speaking on condition of anonymity to Fortune to discuss the covert mission. An Iranian state media on Friday also said that a second U.S. plane, an A-10 aircraft, also crashed after being hit by Iranian forces. The U.S. military has not commented on that one. But here you can see some of the wreckage, and the information is going to start to go on social media. We're starting to see this war play out on social media, including Truth Social, because Trump is giving away details about it. I'm surprised Pete Hegseth isn't yapping about it on Signal with his friends and his wife like he did before. We also know the U.S. and Israel are bombing civilian infrastructure in Iran and in southern Lebanon, where more than 1 million people have been displaced, as Israel threatens to reoccupy southern Lebanon. You know what that means? Settlers. Let me show you this video. This is A9. The video on your left is Sharif University of Technology. It's basically the MIT of Iran. It's one of more than a dozen universities that have been targeted by the Israelis and the U.S. military. We are bombing universities with Israel. On your right is a town called Teban in southern Lebanon that is being obliterated by Israel. So they're doing both of the things on the left and the right, destroying universities. This is genocide because it is an attempt not just to fight a war, but to eliminate the people, their intellectual history, their books, their research, their professors. They've killed multiple professors. They've also killed a priest who was ministering to people in Lebanon trying to save them. We're killing priests. We're killing professors. We're bombing universities. Israel is bombing civilian bridges. They're bombing apartment buildings. So they're basically treating Iran and Lebanon exactly the way Israel treated Gaza. Only now we're not just funding it, we're doing it with them. We now also know something that Trump blurted out during an interview with his favorite propaganda channel. Take a listen to this from Fox.
Now, the president also provided new details on what happened earlier this year as the Iranian regime took to the streets and slaughtered what the president tells me is 45,000 civilians in their own country. After that took place, President Trump told me the United States sent guns to the Iranian protesters. He tells me we sent them a lot of guns. We sent them through the Kurds, and the president says he thinks the Kurds kept them. He went on to say we sent guns to the protesters, a lot of them. And so a number of headlines here from my conversation with President Trump. All of this taking place more than a month into Operation Epic Fury and in the aftermath of that successful U.S. operation overnight to rescue that stranded U.S. service member inside Iranian territory. The president himself ordering that operation after the CIA came on Saturday morning and confirmed that they located where this crew member of an F-15 that was shot down on Friday was located. Again, the president making that decision to send in hundreds of U.S. special forces deep into Iranian territory and successfely retrieving that U.S. service member. Guys,
okay.
I want to make sure I got
why
this
didn't
correctly.
the only thing he didn't add is, and the glorious maximum leader of the United States in his genius and brilliance, he didn't add that. So at least we were spared that. But do you hear what he said? 4 months. Iranian officials, including in an interview with the foreign minister did with Zateo, they've been insisting that the United States, that the CIA was arming the protesters in their streets. And the U.S. has been saying, no, we're not. Donald Trump confirmed that we are running the latest version of the Allen Dulles CIA operations to try to destabilize another country by arming their protesters, by giving them guns. Donald Trump confirmed to Fox that the United States is running a CIA operation to arm Iranian protesters in the hopes that they will rise up and overthrow the government. That is the old school American playbook, including in Iran. You're telling me that the president of the United States, the commander in chief, is so dim that he went ahead and told Fox on the record that the CIA is in Iran, that dozens of CIA officials were in Iran, that the CIA was behind rescuing those airmen, that the airman is a colonel, that the airman was injured, and that we are arming the protesters. The very thing they've been saying is what was fomenting the protests. They've been claiming that the protesters were not a real operation. They weren't native. They weren't organic. They've been claiming that the protests were a CIA operation. And now Trump has confirmed it on his favorite propaganda network. You don't even have to have journalists come back in later and write the story of these attempted coups, etc. Donald Trump is saying it in real time on Truth Social. He is telling of his crimes like a Scooby-Doo villain. And he would have succeeded too if it weren't for those stupid kids and their stupid dog. And meanwhile, on the question, Donald Trump also keeps saying, we're winning this war. We're winning. 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 Are we though? Are we winning? Because my whole thing is, I don't listen. I make y'all listen to a little bit of Trump, but I listen to what he says because he's very blunt, right? But his government, while they don't just blurt out the CIA operations like Trump does, you really have to watch what they actually do. Okay, let me just give you a little history real quick. Donald Trump started this war, which was the third time that his regime has attacked Iran. The first time was during his first term, right? On January 3rd, 2020, an election year. Remember, Trump said that Obama would start a war with Iran because he needed to get reelected. This was in January of 2020, an election year. He was trying to get reelected. Donald Trump ordered a drone strike on Major General Qasem Soleimani near Baghdad International Airport, where Soleimani is how you pronounce his name, Qasem Soleimani. So Qasem Soleimani was on his way to travel to meet with the Iraqi prime minister. Remember, we went to war in Iran, and my little joke was, what do you call Iraq without Saddam Hussein? Iran, because it's mostly Shia like Iran. And so they're now allies. We turned Iraq from an enemy of Iran into their ally because they're now both Shiite-run countries, Shiite Muslim countries, okay? So Soleimani is on his way to go and meet with the prime minister of Iraq. Soleimani was a commander of what's called the Quds Force. It's one of 5 branches of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, meaning their military, which is designated by the US and by the EU, the European Parliament, as a terrorist organization, the Quds Force. Soleimani was considered the second most powerful person in Iran. He runs basically their secret police, like their version of ICE. Subordinate only to the now dead Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So Donald Trump had the US kill him in January of 2020. That was the first thing. That was the first thing that Trump did, okay? And the second one was the strike last June that the Trump regime swore in public destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. This, what I'm putting you right now, is still on their website. Maybe not after this show tonight, but it's still on their website. And it says Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated and suggestions otherwise are fake news. Fake news. He says they've obliterated them. And then he says, ask the people who know. That's what it says on the website. This is from the whitehouse.gov website. It then lists the people who will affirm for you that Iran's entire nuclear capability was obliterated when the United States did these strikes on their nuclear facilities last June, after which their director of national intelligence also affirmed it's all gone. Tulsi Gabbard, who's in charge of all 18 intelligence agencies. You've also got Marco Rubio saying all obliterated. General Raisin Cain, remember Raisin Cain? He said it. They have a quote from him. They have a quote from Rubio. They have a quote from Trump himself. They have a quote from Pete Hegseth. Even Israel's top nuclear official is quoted in that document that's still live on their website. So that's last June. So they say, we're done. Iran, we have gotten rid of their nuclear. Everything. It's all gone. No capability. And then on February 28th of this year, For some reason that no one can understand, U.S. and Israeli forces struck again. And this is after Iran agreed again to give up its nuclear ambitions and cut a deal even better than the one they did with Obama. This time, U.S. and Israel conducted nearly 900 bombing strikes in just the first 12 hours of what the regime, as you heard on Fox, calls Operation Epic Fury, which, again, they shouldn't have needed to do. Why do you need 900 strikes on a country that you've obliterated their entire nuclear capability and then say if you didn't do it, they would have obliterated Israel with what? They don't have any nukes. The attacks targeted Iranian missiles and air defenses, other military infrastructure, and Iranian leadership, including killing Khamenei. And of course, we struck that girls' school, killing about 170 children. But think about that. So we're striking their missiles and their air defenses and their other military infrastructure, the kind of thing that they would use to repel an aerial attack. So we're not striking anything nuclear. We're striking their missiles and air defenses, the kind of things that a normal country would use to repel an aerial attack. Okay, that's what we did in February. That's what we struck. Nothing nuclear, just the things they would use to defend themselves defend themselves against an aerial bombardment. Put in the back of your mind again, what does Donald Trump's children invest in? What companies do they invest in? Drone companies. Okay. And that's what they did in February. Then in March, on March 24th, watch this. What, like the pastors say, watch this. Y'all were in church yesterday, watch this. On March 24th of this year, the U.S. Army did something that you really need to pay attention to. They changed the rules for who could join and be recruited into the military. Let me quote Task and Purpose. This is their online military magazine, Task and Purpose, which military folks read. Quote, a major update to Army recruiting regulations this week raises the maximum age a recruit can join to 42 and removes a barrier for joining for recruits with a single legal conviction for marijuana or drug paraphernalia possession. The Army's previous limit was 35, though exceptions are occasionally made. The higher age limit brings the Army in line with other services, limits of 41 in the Navy and 42 in the Air Force and Space Force. So now they're going to let the 42-year-olds get in the Army, meaning you can be the troops on the ground, the infantry, the people they send into the buzzsaw of wars. Why would they need to do that? If we're winning this war, and we're winning it all with massive air power, overwhelming air power, and we destroyed their missile defenses so they cannot repel an aerial attack. We don't need ground troops. We just need our powerful air strikes. We got our missiles, our $90 million Tomahawk missiles and our F-15. We don't need ground troops. If we don't need what they used to call cannon fodder troops, why would they raise the age and say, and now if you have a weed possession situation, you're good, you can join. It used to be, I spoke to a military guy over the weekend about this, and he said they would be so stressed out, you would have to get a drug test. Now it's like, you go ahead and smoke weed. So they're saying you can be a weed smoker that's 42. Go on and join. Why would they do that if we're winning? You thought about that? You just think about it. Also, we were told that Israel is impenetrable because of the Iron Dome. Nothing can get through the Iron Dome unless it can. Here's what's happening in Haifa, a major city in Israel.
That it could be partly unexploded. The building that they are searching through at the moment is already in danger of collapse. The possibility that there could be further unexploded elements within there in the rubble is obviously causing complications. We understand that among the injured, around about 10 people were hurt. 4 of those more seriously injured. One of them is an elderly man, said to be in a very serious condition, and they are looking specifically now for 4 people who are believed to be from the one apartment who remain unaccounted for. Israel on Sunday was subjected to 4 salvos of incoming missiles from Iran, according to the authorities. One of those missiles fell near the southern city of Beersheba on the Neot Chuvav industrial park. This is a very important industrial area in the south of the country. It landed near a toxic a waste dump. There's no talk of a hazard threat from this site, but it is of concern. This site has been hit 3 times before during this conflict. The last time just over a week ago, which caused a fire at a chemical plant.
Okay, so apparently them air defenses ain't impenetrable at all. Meanwhile, Iran is doing something that we don't have the sound on this because we can't play music, but when I tell you they are trolling the hell out of the United States. Have y'all seen this? Have you guys seen these Lego videos? Are you guys seeing this? Iran is using hip hop music and Legos to troll the absolute crap out of Pete Hegseth. They have one song just about him, calling him an rapist. They're trolling Trump. I would have made this my moment of joy almost, but I'm like, I don't want to put Iranian propaganda on here, but and some of these things are a bop. Some of these hip hop things, some of them are a bop. Are we really winning? Are we? Some people on the right are picking up on the fact that, I don't know about this winning thing, because it doesn't feel like we're winning, right? When we're getting trolled by a Lego barrage on TikTok, they're literally hitting us with the Lego humor, the Lego comedy with hip hop songs under it. That doesn't feel like winning. Do you feel like you're winning when this is happening and Donald Trump is responding with insane, cussy, weird, crazy posts where he then says, 1 minute he's using a sort of a Muslim greeting, which his Christian followers are like, what is that? Why is he doing that? If we're winning. This doesn't feel like winning. This feels like we're getting played and trolled and we're losing. Let's play it. There's a guy named Tim Dillon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tim Dillon. He's a right-wing podcaster that was very pro-Trump in the 2024 election. Let him have the last word on this block.
Con in history. By the way, it's the greatest con in history. I mean, truly. It's the greatest. And I don't say great in like a good way. It is truly the most successful con in history. It makes Enron look like a guy doing 3-card Monte on the street. Anything that you can remember and identify as a complete and utter scam, this is the greatest con in history. To run as an America first, and you're going to take care of America, and then turn around and go, all of these things, daycare, Medicare, Medicaid, we have nothing to do with that. We're fighting wars. That's what we're here to do. We're here to have a defense budget of $1.5 trillion, and we're here to fight wars. It is the greatest scam in history. You got to hand it to him. And I mean, truly, and not, again, not in a moral way, but like you got to hand it to him. This is the greatest about face in political history that I have really ever seen.
And we tried to tell you that's what he was going to do. Let's thank one of our amazing sponsors. We try to tell y'all that he's just a grifter and a thief. We told y'all, I don't know how many times we could have told you. I wrote a whole book telling you. You could have just read that. Let me let you guys know that this episode of the Joy Reid Show is brought to you our friends at Z-Biotics Free Alcohol.
Celebrations don't start with the clinking of glasses. They start with Z-Biotics Free Alcohol, a probiotic you take before your first drink so you can enjoy the night and wake up ready. Z-Biotics Free Alcohol, the science behind your next great morning.
Listen, let's face it, fam. After a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the way I used to. No, menopause be menopause. And I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. Well, that is until Z-Biotics Free Alcohol. Just know that Z-Biotics probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted inside of your gut into this toxic byproduct, which is the thing, not dehydration, that is to blame for those rough days after drinking. So pre-alcohol, what it does is it goes in, it produces an enzyme when you drink it to break that byproduct down. So if you just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, you're going to have a great tomorrow and be at your very best. So this past weekend was a perfect example. Went out with the fam, we hit the DC harbor, we got on the big wheel, and we grabbed a big meal. Now, a night like that normally could have easily made a terrible next morning for me, but no longer. I armed myself with my Z-Biotics before I headed out the door, and the next morning I was good to go. So let's just be real. Too often a Saturday night out means a Sunday morning oversleeping for church and winding up in the overflow because you're late and you're not feeling right. And who wants to be in the overflow? The kids are in their lab, they're crying. But since I started incorporating pre-alcohol, my glass of wine, my little security, does not disrupt my morning flow. And the Lord knows I need it. Ready to make that shift to have a fuller experience and great mornings in 2026? Just remember to head to zbiotics.com/joy and use the code JOY at checkout for 15% off. At zbiotics.com/joy. And use the code JOY at checkout for 15% off because we love you and want you guys to have a good morning. All right, let's move on to something that did not make the news last week. Last Tuesday, a federal judge ruled in one of the last unresolved legal cases stemming from the January 6th insurrection. U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta ruled Tuesday that Trump's remarks at his Stop the Steal rally held at the Ellipse near the White House shortly before the siege began plausibly were inciting words that are not protected by the First Amendment right to free speech. The Republican president is not shielded for liability for much of his January 6th conduct, the ruling said, including that speech and much of his social media that he posted that day on X Twitter, according to the judge. But Mehta said that Trump cannot be held liable for his official acts that day, including his Rose Garden remarks during the riot and his interactions with Justice Department officials. But the speech, though, it says President Trump has not shown that the speech reasonably could be understood as falling within the outer perimeter of his presidential duties, said Mehta. The content of the Ellipse speech confirms that it is not covered by official acts immunity. And just about that lawsuit very quickly, it was filed on February 16, 2021 by a Cohen Milstein, which is a law firm in partnership with the NAACP. They filed it in district court in D.C. on behalf of the Honorable Benny Thompson, who is the very well-known Mississippi senator who's the head of the oversight. He was head of the January 6th committee. He was the chairman of the January 6th committee. And so it was filed by him initially in his personal capacity against the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, and Donald Trump for conspiring to prevent him and other members of Congress from discharging their official duties on January 6, 2021, including their official duty, right, to approve the counter results of the election. On April 7, he withdrew, effectively withdrew, Benny Thompson did, and 10 other members of the U.S. House of Representatives joined the lawsuit against the defendants asserting the same claim. So those people are Karen Bass, who's now mayor of LA, Barbara Lee, who's now mayor of Oakland, Stephen Cohen, Veronica Escobar, Pramila Jayapal, Henry Johnson, Marcia Kaptur, and Gerald Nadler, and Maxine Waters, and Bonnie Watson Coleman. So they are the ones who joined the case. So that's one thing that happens, and they're now going to get to proceed. The other thing that happened in the courts right now, there is a coalition of voting rights organizations that have filed a lawsuit, and they filed that lawsuit in the U.S. District Court of Massachusetts, challenging Donald Trump's March 31 executive order concerning mail-in voting. The Constitution explicitly states that only Congress and the states can set the rules for elections, not Donald Trump. Joining me now to discuss this are Sophia Lin Lakin, who is the director of the ACLU Voting Rights Project, and Anthony Ashton, attorney at the NAACP. Anthony, I'm going to start with you. Talk about this lawsuit. When do you expect an action? Do you expect this to ever go to trial?
I think we certainly hope that it's going to go to trial. Right now, we've beaten Trump twice before the same court with regard to his claims of immunity, with us being able to show that he has no immunity for the actions he took that day. He was not acting as a president. He was acting as a regular person who was seeking a job, someone who was campaigning, who didn't understand that the election was over. So it is our hope that we will be able to use this ruling, as well as assuming that he appeals, that we would go back up to the DC Circuit, where we have won before, with regard to his claim of immunity. And then we can, unless he goes to the Supreme Court, we can go back and actually start trying to vindicate the rights of the people who were trapped in that building on January 6th. A lot of people forget these were human beings who were afraid for their lives while a band of people broke down the doors to come in with the express purpose of stopping them from doing their legal duty, and were chanting about literally committing murder.
Exactly. And to that point, very point, just to stay with you just for a moment, Jack Smith attempted to prosecute Donald Trump for this. This is something that he tried to hold him criminally liable for. Jason, if you could hit us with B3, please. B3.
So did you develop evidence that President Trump, was responsible for the violence at the Capitol on January 6th?
So our view of the evidence was that he caused it, and that he exploited it, and that it was foreseeable to him.
But you don't have any evidence that he instructed people to crash the Capitol, do you?
As I said, our evidence is that he, in the weeks leading up to January 6th, created a level of distrust. He used that level of distrust to get people to believe fraud claims that weren't true. He made false statements to state legislatures, to his supporters, in all sorts of contexts, and was aware in the days leading up to January 6th that his supporters were angry when he invited them. And then he directed them to the Capitol. Having a record that is a hard record about a time, and the timeline of that afternoon was particularly important because that violence started. The president refused to stop it. He endangered the life of his vice president. Then he's getting calls, and not calls from Democrats, not calls from people he doesn't know, calls from people he trusts, calls from people he relies on. And still refuses to come to the aid of the people at the Capitol. That's very important evidence for criminal intent in our case.
So that's evidence for criminal intent, according to Jack Smith, who, of course, the right is trying to go after because he tried to do that. And unfortunately, Merrick Garland made it take too long, so he couldn't get to fruition on that case. How will this case be different, if at all, from the case Jack Smith would have made, Anthony?
Well, first of all, we are actually pursuing this case. As opposed to having to go through and jump through the hoops that he did, we filed this case, and we were the first people to file a case related to this, literally within 3 weeks of the insurrection. So we are a lot farther down the road than he was. We also we've gone through some discovery with regard to documents and emails related to the administration and how the program at the Ellipse was put on that day. So we are much farther down that road than he was ever allowed to go. I think that the question about intent is still there. We have made the claim, and it's our position that he conspired with those who attacked the Capitol, and that is the claim that the judge has said will move forward. That is the claim for which the judge said there is no immunity, and that's the claim for which the judge said that the allegations, as we have alleged them, set forth what's called a prima facie case, or a case that is legally sound enough to move forward.
Got it. And that was an attempt at voter suppression of the most sort of violent and egregious kind. But Sophia, so is what they're trying to do via this executive order. Donald Trump's March 31 executive order concerning mail-in voting tries to make it illegal, essentially, despite the fact that he doesn't have the power to do it. The order attempts to displace states' mail-in voting laws by transforming the U.S. Postal Service from a neutral mail carrier to an arbiter of who is allowed to cast a ballot by mail, according to the lawsuit the ACLU is a part of. Can you explain? Are you unmuted, Sophia?
I apologize. My internet cut out, unfortunately, in that moment.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Let me re-ask the question. So Donald Trump's the order that you all are litigating now, according to your lawsuit, according to the ACLU's lawsuit, attempts to displace states' mail-in voting laws by transforming the Postal Service from a neutral mail carrier to an arbiter of who is allowed to cast a ballot by mail. So if you could please explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. At its core, this order puts a federal screening regime between voters and the ballot box. The president is essentially trying to determine who gets to vote, and that is simply just not his call to make. It directs the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration to build citizenship lists from incomplete, inaccurate federal databases and send them to states. Recently naturalized citizens, disproportionately voters of color, are at particular risk of being left off. But it also directs the Postal Service, as you've mentioned, to create a list of so-called approved mail voters and refuse to deliver mail ballots to anyone not on that list. Now, the Postal Service delivers mail. It does not get to decide who gets to vote. On top of all of this, the executive order threatens criminal prosecution of election officials and federal funding cutoffs for states that don't comply. This isn't about securing elections. This is an abuse of executive power, part of a coordinated effort to control who votes before ballots are even cast.
Yeah, and just so for the chat, if you just to reiterate that, I mean, this is wild. We've already seen that the Department of Homeland Security is not trustworthy. These are the people who run ICE and the Border Patrol. You've seen the results there. At least 2 people died, about 38 people dead or injured at their hands. And part of what this so-called SAVE Act would be that every state would have to send their voter rolls to the Department of Homeland Security. This executive order is trying to kind of do the SAVE Act through an EO. It says the Department of Homeland Security is supposed to build a database of eligible voters, and states have to submit information about their citizenship level or the citizens in their state, and then they get to decide. If this passes, do you all have an estimate of how many people in theory could be disenfranchised?
I mean, in theory, millions of voters who rely on mail voting to cast their ballots. We have, seniors, people who live in rural communities, service members stationed overseas, military families, voters with disabilities, voters who have limited English proficiency. There are a whole slew of voters who rely very heavily on mail voting to cast their ballot, and it would put all of these voters at risk. On top of that, we're talking about chaos and confusion for election administrators, which, as we're getting closer and closer to the election, will have fallen effects on, how smoothly our elections run at the end of the day. So this executive order, and let me be clear about it, we have every reason to expect that this executive order will be blocked. It is an unconstitutional power grab, and federal courts have shown themselves ready and able to block such a power grab to try to seize control over elections by executive fiat. But were this order to go into effect, we would be really seeing an impact, a very real impact on not just voters, and that's extraordinarily important, of course, but also on our clients who represent our organizations that really try very hard to ensure that voters are able to cast ballots that count. And it's going to have an impact on their ability to do that critical work in the months ahead of the election cycle.
I just want to note for everybody that the people that you're talking about, the groups you're talking about, these are the people who filed this suit, the groups. The League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, they're great at getting people registered to vote. The League of Women Voters nationwide organization, the Association of Americans Resident Overseas, the U.S. Vote Foundation, the Asian Pacific American Association, and of course, the devastating divas of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated are all on this lawsuit. So I thank you both for being here. And I think both of you have strong cases. I'm not a lawyer, but they seem to be strong cases because there's just no evidence that you have a lot of non-citizens voting. It's just not a thing that happens. And of course, January 6th was an election grab and a crime. Thank you very much. We appreciate you both, Anthony Ashton of the NAACP and Sophia Lin Lakin of the ACLU, director of the ACLU Voting Rights Project. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I want to also note for you guys that if you are in the state of Virginia, they're coming for your ability to vote too. Because the third thing they're doing, trying to stop mail-in balloting because they're scared of mail-in balloting because Donald Trump lost the big mail-in ballot election in 2020. Trying to make January 6th no longer a crime because, of course, they're probably recruiting all those J6 insurrectionists to be ICE agents and maybe poll watchers or whatever. And then number 3, trying to end the gerrymandering on the Democratic side. That's the response to what they did in Texas. If you could put up B4, Jason, the right, Republican organizations are sending out a mailer. If you live in the state of Virginia, you may have gotten this mailer with Barack Obama's face on it. This is nasty work, trying to use Barack Obama to convince people in Virginia not to vote for this, what they call the 10-1 gerrymander. Virginia is one of the response states. So Texas stole 5 seats from the Democrats. California responded by stealing 5 seats back. And they passed a law saying, we're going to take 5 seats from you if you take 5 seats from the Democrats. There are states that are all matching each other. So red state does it, blue state does it. Red state does it, blue state does it. Virginia is supposed to be, it's a blue state, right? It's a bluish, purplish blue state. They have a potential law on the books, similar to what California did, where they would gerrymander the state in response to red states that are doing the same thing. Groups that are trying to stop this are using an old quote from Barack Obama way before all of this was happening, back in the Obama era, opposing the idea of gerrymandering. And yeah, all Democrats oppose gerrymandering. But if you all play, we don't play the game we're playing. We're going to play on the field we're on, not on the field in our dreams. And so Barack Obama does not oppose this law. And so what I need everyone to do is, if you have a friend in Virginia, they need to vote yes on this law. They need to vote yes. Do not be fooled by the fake Obama mailer, where they're trying to use Obama to convince particularly Black people in Virginia to vote no. You should be voting yes. And by the way, you should be calling Governor Abigail Spanberger, Abigail, because she's been real quiet about this. And Abigail got elected with 90+% of the Black vote. I think it was like 92%. She got like the magic 92%. She overwhelmingly won the Black vote. So Abigail, we're going to need you to be vocal, Abigail. The people who elected you, and not just talking about Black people, we're talking about progressives, people for whom you were considered too moderate. They still came out in droves to put you in to that governor's mansion. And we're going to need you to stand up for this law. People need to vote yes. If you got friends in Virginia, don't be fooled. The right is trying to use Obama against you. Obama is for this law, not against it. Don't be fooled. That's some nasty work trying to use Obama for that. Abigail, I need to hear you. I don't hear you, Abigail. I need to hear you. You need to stand up for this law. I need to get you to get vocal. Governor of Maryland's been very vocal, but he's got a nasty Democratic Senate Majority Leader who's standing in the way of it happening. Wes Moore is trying to get this law passed in Maryland, but he's got this Senate Democrat standing in the way who's the Senate Majority Leader, who's trying to stop it. He need to get a call too. And when he comes up for re-election, maybe he shouldn't stay in. Let me look up his name. Maryland Senate Majority Leader is standing in the way of Maryland attempting to do the same thing. Or is he House? He's either House or Senate. He might be House. We need to get this done. It needs to get done. There has to be tit for tat gerrymandering in Democratic states the same way that Republicans are doing it. Otherwise, they're going to lock in their gerrymander for a decade, and there'll be never an opportunity for the pro-democracy side to regain power. Okay. Let's get one more ad in. We love our sponsors. We appreciate them. Let's let you know that this episode of the Joy Reid Show is also sponsored by strawberry.me. Now, listen, you do not have to be unhappy at your job to just want something more. Success does not just happen. And the most successful people in the world don't just figure it out alone. They have mentors and coaches, people guiding them every step of the way. And that is where strawberry.me career coaching comes in. Career coaching can get you unstuck if you're just sort of trying to figure out where you want to go in your career and you just feel a little stuck. They can help you with that. Can help you uncover what you really want out of the job you have or out of maybe a new career. They can help you identify the obstacles that are holding you back and develop a step-by-step plan to turn your goals into reality. That is what coaching provides, an ability to map out your strategy, figure out what's going to work for you, and get from point A to point B. And so if you think about it, even for myself, you think about the people who along the way have coached you, people who have helped you out, people who have given you advice that's not just like ephemeral advice, but advice that's pragmatic, that's actually helped you in the job that you have, helps you move up or move on to new opportunities. We've all had that kind of a coach. We've all had that kind of assistance. This is a way for you to get that kind of coaching if it's not available to you where you work right now. So If you would like to get yourself some help, get yourself some coaching, move your career to where it needs to be, just go to strawberry.me/joy. Find out if career coaching is right for you. If you go to strawberry.me/joy, you will get 50% off your first session. Give it a try and see if coaching can help you get to where you want to be. So I want to welcome everybody to hour two of the Joy Reid Show. Do be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have bought merch, make sure that you tag us, tag at Joy Reid. If you're on IG, you can also tag us on Facebook, tag Joy Reid Show, Joy Reid Official, or at Joy Reid Show on Facebook. Just tag us or tag me at Joy Reid if you're wearing it, and use the hashtag wearing joy, because we always want to know where our friends are. I want to thank everybody that's gone in here and literally put some coins in the till. We appreciate all of our superstar Team TJRS members who are commenting, who are throwing little coin in the till. We really appreciate each and every one of you guys. We love you guys. And we want to make sure that you also do your Arrive with 5. If you have 5 friends that are not yet subscribers to the Joy Reid Show on YouTube or to Joyanne Reid at Substack, let them know that we're out here. Or if you've got friends that are on Twitch and you want to let them join the TJRS Nation, this is how you can do it. Just send it to them, text it to them, text it to 5 people and tell them, we want you to subscribe to help us climb our way to 500,000 subscribers, which is halfway to the 1 million subscribers that we want to be in our gang. We're forming a little gang, but it's a fun gang. It's a peaceful and wonderful gang. We're fun. We don't cuss that much unless we're pushed. And we know that Trick Daddy is saucy, and we would never book him unless we wanted him to curse and do raunchy things. Sorry, I'm just playing with my friends at AKA. We know that little chapter, that regional chapter. They didn't know. We appreciate it. Okay, let me give you guys a couple of headlines before we go on to our we have a really great guest. We have Eric Swallwell coming at the bottom of the hour. But before that, I want to just get to a few headlines. This one hurts my heart. Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, is saying that they will receive third country deportees. The U.S. is looking to deport people of African descent who are not necessarily Congolese to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And what this regime has been doing is going to poor countries, countries that have financial need, and saying, hey, will you take some of these non-white deportees? We want to deport them. We're not necessarily going to send them back to their home country. We're going to send them to third-party countries who are just willing to take them, and we'll just give you a little coin. This is the new entrepreneurship that they are encouraging around the world. If you are a poor country, then you can say, we'll take some of your non-white deportees, we'll put them in prison in our country, and we'll just get a little cash per head.
And the irony is the Congo is not a poor country. It's a very, very, very rich in minerals country.
In minerals, but in actual GDP, it's very poor because Congo is a country where the minerals are stolen. It's a country that is rife with mineral theft by Europe and by the West and by companies like Amazon and Apple or whatever. They take all of the minerals out of their ground to build iPhones, but the people there aren't benefiting from it, right? The people aren't benefiting.
Not at all. It should be the richest country in the world.
It should be. It's Wakanda. It should be Wakanda, but instead it's one of the poorest countries, not only on the continent, but on earth, because they don't have a working government and a working infrastructure. They keep trying to sort of stand up post Mobutu, but now the industry that some of these global South countries are getting into, that Donald Trump is encouraging them to get into, is taking migrants from the United States who are not going to be sent to their home countries. They're going to be sent to someplace they've never been. Do you speak French? If you don't, good luck in the Congo. They speak French or Lingala or other languages. If you don't speak those languages, how are you even going to get a job? That's if they don't put you in jail when you get there. This is awful. And I am embarrassed that African countries, more than one. Let me read you guys a little bit of this story. This is from PBS. Congo will receive some migrants as part of a new deal under the Trump administration's third country program. Its government said Sunday, the latest such African nation to receive migrants being deported from the U.S. The deportees will start arriving in Congo this month. The Congolese Ministry of Communications said in a statement without further details on the date or number of deportees expected. It described the arrangement as a temporary one that reflects Congo's, quote, commitment to human dignity and international solidarity. It will come with zero cost to the government, with the U.S. covering the needed logistics. So the U.S. is the one paying. They are the payer. The U.S. has struck such third-party deportation deals with at least 7 other African nations, many of them among countries hit the most by the Trump administration's policies that have restricted trade and migration. The Trump administration has spent at least $40 million to deport about 300 migrants. $40 million of your money to deport 300 migrants to countries other than their own. Who's a math person? Let me do my calculator real quick. $40 million to deport 300 people. Let me open my calculator, because that does not sound like a good use of your money. $40 million. Let me put it in my calculator. 40 million, 40, divided by 300 people. That's about $133,333 per person. That is more than the average American makes every year in salary. Lawyers and activists have raised questions over the nature of the deals with countries in Africa and elsewhere. Several of the African nations have signed such deals, and they have notoriously repressive, who have signed such deals have notoriously repressive governments and poor human rights records, including Eswatini, South Sudan, and oh goody, Equatorial Guinea, one of the most corrupt nations on earth, that's got a little baby Trump in office, whose son thinks he's a rapper. Great. Shame on those African countries for doing deals. You shouldn't do any deals with Trump. Come on, can we get more people who will stand up to this guy? Donald Trump claimed he ended the war between Congo and its neighboring countries. He didn't, but he's claiming that's one of his 9 wars he said he ended, and now he's cut a deal with that government. I'm ashamed about it. That's my father country. I'm sad about it. That's one of the stories. Another story here, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, he has a new book where he talks about finding his faith. But the church that's on the book cover, it's a beautiful, very pretty church. The people there have no idea who he is. So he put this church on the cover of his book. And so journalists went to that church to interview the people in the church. And they're like, we've never heard of him. And also, we're not even a Catholic church, we're Methodist. The church that he picked for the book cover is not the church that he says. He claims this church is where he found his faith and converted. He's a convert to Catholicism. He became Catholic later in life as an adult. But the church on the cover is not Catholic. It's Methodist. Having grown up in the Methodist church, I can tell you they're very different. They both do say the catechism. They do a version of the Catholic, but it's not the same. There's acolytes. I grew up in the Methodist church. It's got some similarities, but it's not Catholic. It's Protestant. And they are like, we've never heard of him. He's never been here. We've never seen him before. we don't know. They did a we don't know him. They said we don't know him because of course reporters were like, we want to know this church. They were like, we don't know. One more. Donald Trump has already gotten West Palm Beach County to name an airport after him while he's alive. Very unusual to do that while someone is still alive, but he's not done. He's already gotten that, and now he wants more things named after him while he's still alive. Roll him.
Can you explain why President Trump asked Chuck Schumer to help him rename Penn Station and Dulles Airport after himself? Why is he interested in having his name on those 2 buildings? And why are the Gateway Tunnel funds the proper point of pressure to get that to happen?
To your first question about the renaming, why not? It was something the president floated in his conversation with Chuck Schumer.
What? He wants Penn Station named after himself, and he wants Dulles Airport, not when he's dead, now. He wants to be on the money. They're minting a gold coin. They're going to do that. And he wants his picture he wants his signature on our money. I'm shocked he hasn't asked for the picture too.
Could you consider the fact that he probably knows his days and numbers, so he wants to see it all now before he goes?
He's like a Make-A-Wish kid. I promise you, I'm gonna start calling him the Make-A-Wish president. It's like he's like a Make-A-Wish kid. He's like, before I die, I want to be the king of America and have my name on the money. And then I also want a gold big statue that's called the Arc de Trump. And I want 3 airports and a railroad station. And it's all to be culture. He wants to rename the whole country Trump. What next? And then you'll have stupid Mike Johnson saying, okay, Mr. Trump, we'll rename it America. We'll just call it Trump. And then when people say they're from here, they'll just say they're from Trump. That's what he wants. Everything to be named Trump. This is his history, y'all. I wrote a whole Trump book about it. He puts his name on things. It's what he wants, even if he doesn't own them. Most of the buildings that say Trump, he doesn't own them. He just slaps his name on. He gets $500,000 a year to get his name on it. He just puts his name on everything. Now he wants his name on an airport, 2 airports, and Penn Station that's already called Moynihan. It's already Daniel Patrick Moynihan got his name on it. Are you crazy? If Chuck Schumer does this, he should be primaried by 8 people at once. They wanted, the United States of Trump. This is his dream. Don't give him any ideas. Let's move on. I just wanted to give you guys a couple of that. Do you guys remember this version of Kashyap? His real name is Kash Patel. Take a look.
I'm not saying it's not there. Who are you going to get that?
For instance, who is currently holding, this is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book? FBI.
But who? That's
under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school. We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts. That's how they play the game.
You know, it's the same thing with Epstein's list. It's like, what the hell are these Republicans doing?
I saw you
give out the list.
I saw you make news this morning about that. I got to get to that.
Yeah.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if release the names, right? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word or whoever that guy is as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything. But how are you going to reward the FBI with a new headquarters building after their illegal surveillance on Donald Trump continues with a reauthorization of FISA, and we can't even get basic documents out? This is why America hates Congress. And this is why I'm tired of the Republican majority saying they're going to get the job done and failing.
Yeah, Kash. What are these Republicans doing? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We've got an election coming up, and we need to know the names. You said it. We are saying we agree with you, Kashyap. Put out the list of the pederasts in the files. The only reason Kashyap has changed his mind is that it turns out now that he's the guy who he said has control of the Epstein list. He's the FBI director. He said that when he said the FBI director is who has the files. Is this thing on? The FBI director is who has the files. That's according to you, Kashyap. And now that you're the FBI director, now you're saying, well, it turns out there really actually isn't anybody in the files. It turns out I actually can't release it in the files. It actually turns out that Donald Trump's name is in the files. So this is really not Dick Durbin. It's really me. It's really a problem. It's like, ooh, all the things you said about Dick Durbin sound like they're true about you, because now you found out that your big daddy, Donald Trump, his name is in the files more than Jesus. His name is in the Bible. And now that that's the case, suddenly, all Kash does is scream at members of Congress who ask him about the Epstein files and, get his email hacked. Like, how did your email get hacked? What's happening? You're the head of the FBI. It has just not worked out. None. There have been no repercussions. Zero. For the maybe dozens, maybe hundreds of men in the Epstein files who may have abused women, maybe more. To say nothing of all the revelations that have made QAnon actually seem like CNN. Even Pizzagate turned out to have some small kernel of truth in it. But Kashyap, he's not on the case. In fact, again, He can't even keep his own email secure. What is happening? Meanwhile, poor Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show this morning with her mom still missing. What does Kash Patel actually do at the FBI besides firing experienced agents because they dared to investigate Trump? And oh yeah, and he does this. Here, this is what he does. Let me show you what he does. He does things like this. Oh, hold on. We're going to show you in a second. Uh-oh, it's coming. Yep. D3. Uh-oh. Okay, well, we're going to tell you what he does. The bottom line is Kash Patel promised us that he would release the Epstein files. He said the FBI was finally going to run professionally. He said the FBI was spending all of its time chasing Donald Trump and not doing its job. He said the FBI was going to be better under him. He's a podcaster, but he still said that he would bring the kind of competence and fairness and righteousness to the FBI that it needed so that it would run properly and that he would actually release the files. He said he was going to do it. And then he and Pam Bondi got there and they did the opposite. They did the actual opposite. Do we have B3? No, we don't have it. We may not have it. We may have to let it go. Oh, okay. Well, we'll let it go. The bottom line is that Kash Patel has done nothing to actually change the FBI to something that seems competent. I promise you, I've said it before, the internet is going to find Savannah Guthrie mom before the FBI does. The only way they found the alleged pipe bomber from January 6th is his own family turned him in. The only way they claim that they found a tipster tipped him in. Sorry, a tipster tipped him in. The only way that they found the person who they say is who killed Charlie Kirk is his own family turned him in. Have they solved any crimes, any major crimes since Kash Patel has taken charge? I don't think so. I can't think of any. If they have, I can't think of any. In fact, it seems to me that mostly what they're doing, oh wait, hold on. I think we got it. Here it is. Kash Patel. Yeah, we okay. That's what Kash Patel is doing. So Kash Patel, rather than solving crimes, was flying using your tax dollars to go to Italy to go and get blackout drunk with the hockey team or something. What? Maybe he thought that was Valhalla. When he's not doing that, he's, in hearings, sniping at members of Congress for daring to ask him questions. Apparently, he's against oversight. And now look, he's doing this. Going after, we can put that back up. Kash Yap's FBI apparently is looking to go after California Representative Eric Swallwell. This is what they're doing with their tax dollars over one of the right's favorite memes. Let me read this to you from the New York Times. Trump administration officials have ordered FBI agents to gather documents about a decade-old investigation into a Democratic congressman and his ties to a suspected Chinese spy, according to people familiar with the matter. The effort has alarmed law enforcement officials who say they fear that the material could be released publicly to smear the lawmaker, Representative Eric Swallwell, a prominent critic of President Trump, who's now running for governor of California. The investigation dates back for more than a decade ago when FBI counterintelligence agents looked into a Chinese woman, Christine Fang, or Fang Fang, who assisted Mr. Swalwell with fundraising. The FBI concluded the previous FBI pre-Kash. And the Justice Department did not bring any criminal charges. In recent days, scores of FBI agents and other personnel in California were instructed to gather the documents on Mr. Swalwell and Ms. Fang with the goal of working through this past weekend, to finish a review by early next week. The people said supervisors advised the agents to lightly redact the records to obscure some sensitive information and told them the files would be shared with senior administration officials in Washington. Oh, mean like Kash Patel? Because if you share that, the next thing you know, that's going to be on Fox. And note the running for governor part. Running for governor of California, right? Because Trump, he already has enough problems with the California governor who continually trolls him. And who also, in terms of Swalwell, he doesn't want a repeat of the current situation he has now, where he has a governor who trolls him relentlessly, who makes him feel quite sad, who bothers him because he may run against him if he tries to run for a third term in 2028. So he doesn't want a repeat, right? He certainly doesn't want that. And in addition to that, Representative Swalwell sits on one of the many committees that conduct oversight into the FBI, oversight over the FBI. Here is Representative Swalwell doing that with Kash Patel in the hot seat.
Great, thank you. Madam Attorney General, you acknowledged earlier to Mr. Johnson that President Trump was mentioned and the release countless times, you said, in the Epstein files. I just want to play a video, though, for you that I think speaks to the frustration that many of these victims have. Of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
Director, could it at
we have
least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
you can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number.
I understand why the victims are frustrated, and the Attorney General acknowledged what Mr. Patel would not acknowledge, that it was way more than 1,000 times. But I want to move, Madam Attorney General, to weaponization of government. And yesterday it was reported.
Okay. I don't know. How many times? I don't know. He went from release the damn files, put your big boy pants on, to the guy who now has oversight over the file. He literally has access to the files. He has more access to the files than anybody except formerly Pam Bondi before she got fired. And he is saying, I don't know. He has no answers to anything. He doesn't know how many people are in it. He doesn't know how many pedophiles are in it. He has no idea. He has no information. He has nothing. Nada. Nothing. Representative Swalwell is one of about 173 people that are running for California governor, by the way. There's a whole bunch of them running. And the challenge is there are so many Democrats running that 2 Republicans are actually polling on top. Out of all the bunch of people running, because there's so many Democrats running, Katie Porter, all these people running, the 2 Republicans that are running are actually polling 1 and 2 right now, which is scaring the hell out of Democrats that you literally could have a Republican governor of California out of this. So let's talk about the front runner right now. Okay. There are 2 that are running 1 and 2, but this is the person who's right now polling first. He's a former advisor to the former conservative UK Prime Minister David Cameron. He's British by birth. And his name is Steve Hilton. He's a British transplant in Fox News. You have to put the news in scare quotes. Contributor. And here he is saying, oh, shucks, despite that whole resume, I'm not partisan.
You represent Californians who are not part of your political party.
Oh, I'm here for every Californian. I mean, I think it takes me back to our very first conversation soon after I entered the race. And I said, my platform is not a partisan platform. It's very pragmatic.
But do you want Donald Trump to endorse you?
I've said I'd be honored to have his endorsement. I think he's got other things on his mind right now than the California governor's race. But my entire plan is non-ideological. It's $3 gas. Cut your electric bills in half. Your first $100,000 tax-free, a home you can afford to buy. These are things that are there for every Californian. And I have experience, most of my career, as I mentioned, was in business. I did work for a while in the government in the UK, senior advisor to the Prime Minister. He was a conservative Prime Minister, but it was a coalition government. And so I'm used to working across the aisle. I shared an office right next to the cabinet room with my opposite number from a different party. And so I think that, the job is to make life better for everybody who lives in this state. And that will be how I operate as governor.
What grade would you give Governor Gavin Newsom for his last 2 terms?
F, the lowest possible. It's a total disaster.
First of all, last 2 terms, you only can do 2 terms, but I'm just a non-partisan. I'm not a partisan. Me, I'm just a lovely British gentleman who wants to give everyone lower prices and cheaper gas and all the good things. All of them, whether they are a right-winger or a little lefty. I just a non-partisan. I'm not. You've heard this before, right? I mean, we've been here before, Pam. Remember when Donald Trump was just going to have no more wars and lower, he says, grocery prices on day 1. I'm a cheaper grocery prices, affordability, cheaper gas. end the Ukraine war, day one. Remember, when right wingers make promises, you gotta keep a weather eye on them, because this is also Mr. Steve Hilton. Here's D6.
If you look at the central question Californians are asking, which is, how is it possible that we pay the highest taxes in the country for the worst results? The homelessness, the schools are a disaster. We have the highest cost of living, the highest poverty rate, the highest unemployment rate, and yet we pay with the worst roads in the country, even though we have the highest gas tax. Well, now we see the answer. Fraud and corruption on an epic scale after 16 years of one-party rule by a corrupt Democrat regime. So this is our second fraud report at Cal Doge just a few weeks ago. This is $1 billion that was supposed to have been spent on installing solar panels on low-income apartment buildings as part of their insane climate agenda. So it's supposed to be $100 million every year for 10 years, starting in 2015. We looked at the books. Of the $1 billion total, the amount that was actually spent on solar panels, 72 million. 928 million, nearly all of it was diverted to Democrat activist groups doing voter registration and all the rest of it. Taxpayer money. This is how they finance their machine. That's what's been going on here.
Democrat. And there he is on Mark Levin, who's a far right-wing Israeli firster, is very much into the war. So that's your nonpartisan Andrew Sullivan clone, who says he's going to be there for all Californians. Don't worry. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Joining me now is California Congressman Eric Swallwell, the aforementioned, currently representing California's fighting 14th district, but also one of the 477 people running for governor.
Joy, I used to think everything sounded better with a British accent,
right?
Until I heard Steve Hilton's bullshit. That doesn't sound better.
Bullshit is bad in any accent. I don't care how. You could do a cool Jamaican accent. If it's bullshit, it's gonna sound like bullshit. Are you ready to debate Junior? What is he? Junior Andrew Sullivan here for governor? If you get to the final two.
Yes, and actually, I'm going to debate him in 2 weeks on April 22. There's a debate that he is at, and it has to be clear that if this guy is the governor, we have a Western White House in California. That the healthcare cuts that we have seen and that Gavin Newsom is fighting to claw back will only be accelerated. People will pay more for healthcare. That the immigrant community that's running through the fields and factories where they work, only more of them will live in fear. And the troops that have come to our state and left when Governor Newsom sued the federal government, they'll be welcomed with open arms and back in California. Californians, Joy, do not want the next governor to be a friend of Donald Trump. They want him to be a fighter.
I can only imagine what a state that's got about like 39% of the population is Latino. And ICE seems to think anyone who looks Latino or has an accent or is brown in any way is a target, and a target for violence, for kidnapping. A state like that would be a gold mine for Stephen Miller. If you had a right-wing governor that was willing to let them run wild in California, I don't even know how that looks. They'd be stopping every other person.
And that, they nearly already are. And my district, folks don't, I think they look at me and I wouldn't blame them for not understanding that my district, 40% of the people I represent were born outside the United States. About a third of the district is Asian American, another third is Hispanic, and then the other third is a mix. But my district is a diverse, primarily immigrant district. And I saw just a couple weeks ago how cruel ICE can be when a 6-year-old boy named Joseph and his little brother and his mom were arrested and detained and then ultimately sent to Colombia. And these guys are so cruel that when the mom was screaming at the ICE agents that Joseph, who's deaf, needed his assistive listening devices, they didn't care. They didn't let him take the devices to Colombia. And so my staff collected the devices a couple days later and flew to Colombia to put the sound back into Joseph's ear. But that's who we're dealing with here as far as who is ICE and what could it be with a Republican governor.
So why is it? Let me put this up. New York Times did sort of a collection of polls. I mean, I'm not huge into the poll aggregator game, but I don't really do 538 and all that. They seem to have a lean, but there's a lot of junk polls in it. But this is a pretty scary polling outlook in the New York Times. Every single poll has an average of Hilton up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. The only poll where he's not leading, you're leading. You're the only other person that's not that shows up as leading any poll at all. Do you think that this, first of all, why is this happening? Why are Republicans leading in these polls? And secondly, do you think this, what I'm just showing you here, is why the FBI and Kash Patel are targeting you?
Well, what we've seen, Joy, is yes, this is why they're targeting me. A week before I got into the race, and it was well known that I was going to be getting into the race, Bill Pulte referred me for the same mortgage nonsense that he has used against Adam Schiff, Tish James, and Lisa Cook. And then as we have we've been the consistent Democratic frontrunner in the polls, in the fundraising and endorsements. We expected that this would come. And frankly, we expect there will be something new in the next couple of weeks coming from the White House. But what you're seeing as far as why are two Republicans typically leading in the polls, when you put that number together collectively, that is the Republican vote in California. And then you have, as you joked in the intro, you have a lot of other Democrats running. Most of them are in like the 1% to 2% range. But when you add it all together, it's prevented, the top 2 or 3 performing Democrats from really being able to separate and solidify the top 2 position. Now, the president endorsing Steve Hilton, we think probably takes that argument away, and there's no zero to little risk of a lockout. And it's also a risk for the president if there are 2 Democrats at the top of the ticket, because then the seats that they want to defend in the House that they need to keep their thin majority are almost all but guaranteed to be gone. But as I said, I have been the leading Democrat since I got into this race back in November. We expect more arrows from the White House. And, for us, it's just signals who the threat is to Donald Trump. He's trying to pick who the Republican is and who the Democrat isn't.
And can you just give us a sense of what else because I think voters, California is funny. They're like, it's like New York, where it's a liberal state, but they have a tendency sometimes to like break bad, right? Like, New York will put a Republican governor in every so often, and New York City will pick some of the worst Republicans ever, Rudy Giuliani, people like that. And California, not the worst, but they picked, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a celebrity. They were like, we'll go with him. And California is not immune to electing a Republican governor. Are people understanding fully what it would mean to have a governor that's an ally of Donald Trump and all that would mean? Do you think people are getting that message?
Yes. And voters showed up, if you remember, back in November to pass Prop 50. That's why it's so intolerable to allow a Western White House, as I've called it, because back in November, when Texas was doing its rigged districting and taking 5 House seats away from Democrats, within 90 days, Governor Newsom was able to lead Californians to the poll, and it passed with about 64% for California to match what Texas did. It's the largest turnout ever in a special election in California. And so it would be completely opposite to that, to elect a Republican. And only under this, screwy top 2 system could it happen. And so that's why my job, Joy, as I said, is to tell our story, close in the next couple of weeks. I've been outspent by another Democrat, 125 million to 0. But our first ads just went up, and our communication effort just went up in the last 2 days. So my job is, to tell the story, separate, and then go into, the June to November general election, really contrasting what democratic values, fighting and protecting for our immigrant state, mean compared to the cruelty of Trump's Western White House friend, Steve Hilton.
Do you fear that, we've seen what the DOJ was willing to do under Pamela Joe Bondi, which was bad enough, but now Trump has yet another loyalist in as an interim attorney general. And of course, Kash Patel, who they've been pretty publicly signaling they're coming after you. Are you concerned they may try to arrest you in order to stop you from being able to consolidate a lead or win that race?
My wife and I have had that conversation. We've talked to our neighbors about, what that means for the kids. But one page that we are all on together is that it's not going to stop me. And I'm not the only one, right? We've seen Adam Schiff, Tish James, Lisa Cook, others stand up.
LaMonica McIver. I mean, she's literally being indicted.
Yes.
Your colleague.
And I have worked with her to support her legal defense effort. Also, the 6 senators and members of Congress who they tried to indict for telling the military, you have to follow the law. And so the good news story there is that no one has flinched. Everyone has stood strong. And we are stronger together rather than letting the president, one off each of us by having us back down. And frankly, California, the largest state in the country, the most diverse state in the country, it needs a governor who approaches the job, at least the next 2 year, fearlessly, but also with optimism that this guy doesn't define us, that we get to write the new California story, not Donald Trump.
Yeah. Jason, I'm going to go to D9 and D10 if you don't mind. California also has the largest number of military bases in the entire country. People don't think of it as like the big military state, but it is in terms of just the number of military bases that it hosts. And right now we are at war in the Middle East. And as a member of Congress, do you have a sense of why we're at war with the Middle East?
No, I don't know what the justification is. I don't know what the plan is to end this conflict. I do know that Donald Trump has more plans for his ballroom in the East Wing than he does for the Middle East. That is clear. But I'm not voting to give them another penny. The best thing I can do for the troops is to not send them into this pointless, endless war that the president has taken us into. As we've lost over a dozen troops so far. Gas prices in California are soaring, almost $8 a gallon. Also, we don't have any plan as far as what comes next over in the region. So for all of those reasons, I will not support giving them another penny for this conflict.
Let's actually, sorry, Jason, I'm going to go in order. So Donald Trump, and we don't care about the Easter egg roll really, but this is D8, Jason, it's a video that Donald Trump did his little Easter egg thing, which was weird and, for many reasons, for all the obvious reasons. But we're going to go a little further in the video. While he was walking around, he was holding a picture of this Arc de Trump that he wants to create. He was walking around with it, I guess showing it to people. There it is. You're going to see it in his hand. That's it. Congress has not authorized him to build anything on the National Mall, and he's been rebuked about a now $400 million ballroom. Why is Congress not standing in the way of these things? The East Wing was destroyed. There was really no reaction. He's now seeming to think he's going to build a giant structure on the National Mall. Is Congress going to stop him?
I'm sorry, Joy. Who is Congress?
Good question. Does it exist? Is there a Congress? Sometimes I wonder.
Yeah, no, we're on recess when they fail to pay TSA agents because they don't want to have ICE agents take off their masks or rely on a warrant. They've completely abdicated their responsibility, and they've given over their voting cards to Donald Trump. And that's all the more reason that we have to keep these No Kings rallies style of activism up, march all the way to the ballot box. But as you just pointed to, anywhere in DC, alongside many federal buildings, you see these roof to ground posters that are hundreds of feet long and wide of Donald Trump's face. And this is what dictators do typically in their last acts. And we have crossed into that now with all of these monuments to Trump. And I think most Americans would have loved if they saw, a memo in his hand that said, lowering your costs. Maybe if he could just fucking focus for once, on lowering costs.
Be nice.
He'd have higher than 33% approval.
And just let's show this for a minute. We're going to show you a map of we have a lot of military bases in the Middle East, just so people get in a sense of, just to look at it, right? There are a lot of our troops that are in jeopardy every day. And as I said, California disproportionately contributes to the number of people that are in these military bases. I'm hearing reports, I was hearing reports over the weekend that lots of them in the UAE are being hit. Iran is targeting these military bases. Not targeting civilian infrastructure the same way that Israel is doing, but our troops are genuinely at risk. And as I look at that map, I think about the fact that Donald Trump's family are benefiting from this war directly. Donald Trump Jr., let me be reading from my notes here, sits on the board of a company called Unusual Machines, which is a drones parts startup that got a $620 million loan from the Department of Defense. Eric and Don Jr. are backing a company called Power US, a drone company targeting Pentagon sales and utilizing war-tested Ukrainian technology. Eric Trump has invested in a company called Xtend, XTEND, which is an Israeli drone company, which is also a Department of Defense contractor. And one more, Don Jr. is a partner in something called 1789, which is a venture capital firm that's backing defense tech startups. Donald Trump's personal family. Remember the whole thing about Hunter Biden and how Hunter Biden was benefiting from the presidency, from Biden's presidency? This family is literally benefiting from his switcheroo on no new wars. And again, you're right. There is no Congress. But don't this seem like something that maybe should be investigated?
And they think they're invincible. They're not. And Democrats have to telegraph, from Hakeem Jeffries to Jamie Raskin to Robert Garcia, the people who are going to have the gavels, and they're doing it. But we have to keep telegraphing it's all coming out. And so if you're doing a drug deal with these guys, you'll be before Congress. And they may try and save themselves with pardons and whatnot. They're not going to be able to save you from coming before Congress and explaining what your company did with these guys. And the more we do that, we may not stop the deals that have already been done, but it might be a deterrent if we say it loud enough and convincingly enough. It may be a deterrent from the next drug deal that these guys try and do.
Let me really quickly play Pete Hegseth. This is D10.
Our campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield.
Defense Magazine reports that 6 top defense contractors have agreed to quadruple production of what Trump has deemed exquisite class weaponry following a meeting at the White House. The ones you would expect, Northrop Grumman, all the rest, bellying up to the bar for more money. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, BAE Systems, RTX, Honeywell. He's saying we negotiate with bombs. 2 questions. Number one, what kind of fallout could there be? Let's say the Democrats take over the House. What could you all do about putting a stop to that, the $1.5 trillion budget that is sending these companies' stocks into overdrive? And number 2, should that guy be impeached, Pete Hegseth?
Yes. And to go back to the first question, you said they negotiate with bombs, and guess who owns the bombs, right? It's the Trump family. And also, Joy, it wasn't in that clip, but they kept reiterating, the president and Hegseth, that, quote, we own the skies, which is insane because we keep seeing pilots shot down. So we don't own the skies. And in fact, we've had a number of search and rescue missions because our pilots have been hit. And so they are just outright lying to the American people. What we can do in the majority is just not to fund this war and make it clear we're not funding this war, that, we're going to have the power of the purse and the subpoena power and the oversight power. We're not going to pay for it. And the American people are going to learn a hell of a lot more about what's happening when those witnesses come before Congress.
Do you intend to vote for Hakeem Jeffries as leader if you
Well, I'm leaving Congress, Joy.
Oh, you're going to leave. Let's say if you're still there. I'm
If
just
I'm
saying.
still there, yes, I do.
You will
yes.
vote for him. Do you think he's the right leader for these times?
He's Pelosi trained too, and she, I sat at the leadership table with Speaker Pelosi, and Hakeem was on that leadership team, and he saw, how she was able to claw back a lot of what was taken, like in the first 2 years, in her second 2 years, very strategically. And I see that opportunity on Medicaid funding that's been taken. There's a lot of red states and rural hospitals that are suffering, and going into the majority, having the power of the purse, seeing what Nancy Pelosi did, I think he's going to be able to bring back a lot of dollars that are going to be needed, to triage what the losses are that are coming because of the Medicaid cuts.
So to your point, you are leaving Congress to run for governor. Is that why you're leaving? Do you feel that Congress is no longer effective at governing the American people?
I was inspired by what I saw on the trail trying to pass Prop 50. I'd never planned to run for governor. I am the most senior Democrat after Benny Thompson on the Homeland Security Committee. So, there was a pathway to, one day leading that committee. My wife has sent me every job listing in the private sector after 20 years of, being in the
There's
public
jobs
sector.
in the private sector?
I know.
I don't think there are any.
Well, she works full
found
time.
the
So
few.
she's like, I would love for you to join me.
Yeah.
And so being out there though for Prop 50 and talking to Californians who would say to me that, the governor's termed out, Governor Newsom, and they would ask, like, who's going to be the fighter protector? And they would tell me they saw me and the governor as two of the most effective Californians doing that. I told my wife, I think they're asking if I'll run for governor. We'd never planned it, but to be a fighter protector during the next 2 years and bring optimism, as I said, to write a new California story for the next two. But I am excited. I am a little, of course I'll miss Congress, because going into the majority and doing the work that Democrats are going to have to do, and I believe we're also going to have the Senate, is going to be so important. And I have to say, in the Senate, they should not confirm a Supreme Court justice if they are asked to. They should not even give the person a hearing, period. And
Agreed.
you will have to sell me on what any cabinet nominee is going to be qualified to even be confirmed. The best thing they can do is to stop the cruelty and stop the corruption, and not to co-sign on any of it.
Let me ask you a question from the chat. The chat wants to know, have you campaigned in Altadena, or do you plan to?
It was the first place I went the morning after I announced on Jimmy Kimmel. And I've since been back and will continue to go back to rebuild that community and make sure it doesn't happen anywhere else.
And what would be, give me your top 3 things you would do as governor. My exit question, give me the 3 things that Governor Eric Swallwell would do that's not being done now.
Yep. Fight and protect during the next 2 years. Second is build like crazy. Right now, the average age of a first-time home buyer in California is 40 years old. I want us to be a state where you can take your first job, have your first kid, and buy your first home in the same decade. And so really accelerate decision-making and put more supply into the housing market. And then third, Joy, will be to really modernize the state. We have a lot of aging infrastructure that costs us more for utilities and water. And I want to be a modernizing force, but resilience as an independent state. I think we can have our own fund separate from the federal government, leverage the bank statement and the work diversity in our state to go around the world, raise money into that fund, have the state take a equity share into some of these California research technology companies, so that when Californians say we're the 4th largest economy in the world, it actually means something, because everyone does better because of it.
And what about reigning in Silicon Valley a little bit? I mean, they seem to have taken over the country. They seem to run it in many ways.
And what I've told them is that you have to help me solve this looming, challenge of AI and low wages. And if you do that, I will root for your success if you lift up wages and benefits for working people. But I'm not going to allow corporate welfare where your employees can't even afford to rent nearby and they're on state assistance, which is often the case with many companies. And so we call it a corporate accountability tax, to rein them in where that type of exploitative behavior is happening.
All right, I promise I'll let you go. I have 2 more questions. Question 1, have you and the other Democrats had a conversation behind the scenes about maybe some people bowing out so that there can be fewer than 178 people on the Democratic
Joy,
side?
I ran for president in 2019. I qualified for the first debate. it didn't go as well as I hoped. I got 4.5 minutes out of like 2.5 hours. I'm looking over at, Kamala, Bernie, Biden, and I was at the end of the stage. And now, I'm at the center of the stage and I'm looking down at the other side of the stage and I'm like, okay, I've been down there before and I know these folks are going to have to make their own decision, as I did right after that debate. But my job, as I said, is to just separate and create, the closing lane that is very much there for us as we go into the voting starts in 28 days.
Voting starts in 28 days. Last question to you, and I ask everyone this, so it is not you in particular. AIPAC will come calling, because if you are a front runner, they're going to see an opportunity to get more pro-Israel folks in every office. Are you taking money from AIPAC, or would you take their money?
We're not, and we won't. They're not getting involved in the governor's race at all. And what I'm focused on, as I said, is just being the CEO of lowering costs. And I'm not going, in my remaining time in Congress, I am not paying or voting to fund a penny of this war. As I said, I am a hard no vote on any request, to further fund this war.
Listen, I'm not in California, but that's good enough for me. Representative for now, Eric Swallwell, who would like to be Governor Swalwell. We wish you luck. Tell everybody where they can support you. What's your website?
EricSwallwell.com or at Eric Swallwell on social channels.
All right.
Nice
Follow
to be with
him.
you again, Joy.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care. All right, y'all. There it is. And we asked a question from the chat. We want to make sure the chat gets to get their questions in. So thank you all for throwing those in. And he seems like a good choice to me. I'll be honest with you. I have looked at the field, and if I was in California, that's who I'd vote for, because too many people. There are a lot of people. There are probably a lot of great candidates. But if they can't consolidate, and a lot of people saying Kamala, I so wish she was running for governor. I really do. That would be my dream job for her, even though she probably wouldn't want to do it because she's been vice president of the United States, which is a huge, obviously, second most powerful job in the country. But she would have walked away with. I don't even think that he would have jumped in. I don't think anyone would have jumped in. If she jumped in, and she would have cleared the field. But that is not what happened. What happened is what we got. So you got to vote for who's on the ticket. You got to vote for who's on the table, not for who you hope was on the table. All right, you guys, let's get to our moment of joy. This is a good one. Now, Jason and I are very space obsessed. We both love I love space. I think outer space is so fascinating. I don't know that I would ever want to go into space, but if I could just get up there without the scary ride up, I would totally do it. And so I'm super excited, and I know a lot of you probably are too, about the Artemis II mission, which is going further into space than any spacecraft has ever gone before. It's like doing a big shoot around the dark side of the moon. Any human, not any spacecraft. Spacecraft have gone further, but any human has already gone. No humans have gone this far around the dark side of the moon. It's really exciting. All right, Jason, go ahead and play it's like a mashup of stuff about Artemis II. Here it is. Moment of joy.
Artemis II. They've been woken up by one of their favorite songs or a special message recorded for the crew. And today they were woken up with a message recorded by astronaut Jim Lovell, the pilot of Apollo 8. It was recorded shortly before he passed away last year.
Hello, Artemis II. This is Apollo astronaut Jim Lovell. Welcome to my old neighborhood. When Frank Borman and Bill Andrews and I orbited the moon on Apollo 8, we got humanity's first up-close look at the moon and got a view of the home planet that inspired and united people around the world. I'm proud to pass that torch on to you as you swing around the moon and lay the groundwork for missions to Mars for the benefit of all. It's a historic day, and I know how busy you'll be, but don't forget to enjoy the view. So, Reid, and Victor, and Christina, and Jeremy, and all the great teams supporting you. Good luck and Godspeed from all of us here on the good earth.
A beautiful image here of Earth in all its glory. Now, you might be used to seeing the crescent moon, but the astronauts captured this incredible image of the crescent Earth. Quite incredible. And on day 4, the Artemis II crew captured this shot of the far side of the moon, which NASA says marks the first time humans have seen the entire Oriental Basin.
From the cabin of integrity here, as we surpass the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth, we do so in honoring the extraordinary efforts and feats of our predecessors in human space exploration. We will continue our journey even further into space before Mother Earth succeeds in pulling us back to everything that we hold dear. But we, most importantly, choose this moment to challenge this generation and the next to make sure this record is not long-lived.
As you all know, there is so much division at home right now. What is it that you're feeling, and what message do you want to send to the American people about what you're seeing out that window?
Well, the first thing I would say is trust us. You look amazing. You look beautiful. And from up here, you also look like one thing. You know, Homo sapiens is all of us, no matter where you're from or you know, what you look like. We're all one people. And so, you know, this mission, one of the things that's amazing about being around and just being an astronaut, you know, serving our countries at this time is that we get to give ourselves a mission that we can hold on to say, hey, look at what we did for the rest of our lives. You know, we call amazing things that humans do moonshots for a reason, because this brought us together and showed us what we can do when we put, not just putting our differences aside, when we bring our differences together and use all the strengths to accomplish something great. And so this mission will give us one of those that we all can remember and hold on to for the rest of our days. And I hope people will tune in and give us a chance.
I love this so much. And look, there's a Reid in it. So the commander's name, the first voice you heard after the Sky News. I picked the one from Sky News because it's Sky News. Get it? Sky News. So after the Sky News thing and that wonderful former astronaut who left a message for them before he passed away, that was lovely. But the commander, the first voice you heard from the Artemis II, his name is Reid Wiseman. The pilot, who's the brother who you saw, his name is Victor Glover. The mission specialists are Christina Koch of NASA and Jeremy Hansen of the Canadian Space Agency. So it's a DEI diverse crew representing all of humanity, or at least lots of different kinds of people in the world, and wonderful diversity, and very, very, very proud of the U.S. and our good friends in Canada. Something good, moment of joy. We made it to space, and it's not freaking private company. It's NASA, not SpaceX or one of them other ones. It's NASA. So God bless NASA, and God help that crew. God bless that crew. Sorry. And make sure that crew gets home safely. Love you guys. See you guys on Wednesday. Cenk Uygur is going to be here. That's going to be big. That's going to be an interesting conversation on Wednesday. So we'll see you on Wednesday. Don't forget, send that to 5 people so we can get 5 of your friends to go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. And also on Substack. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. What'd you say there, Jason? All right. See you guys later. We're trying to get to 500,000. Love you. Bye.
Getting back to the basics, grassroots level. Let me dig a little deeper with the shovel. Plenty can't tell the forest from the trees, and I'm hard to detect, like a black hole in the dark. Injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. Let me make this clear, I got a bone to pick, and I'll never fear the threat of poverty. They don't want to talk about it, they rather party, so I'm a real talk about it, for sure.